What's good, y'all? Welcome to another Anything by Mansa Cannon. I'm Mansa, and today I got my good friend from college. Man, this woman is so freaking brilliant. Let me just lead with something that's wild because it's one of my bucket list things. She is an inventor. Yes, she is an engineer. She's been an engineer for an organization that's very significant in the city, doing amazing things. So she started off as a quality engineer, and now she's a human factors engineer. Now, what does this actually mean? Now, we're going to dig into these things so you actually have a better understanding. Like, I often always love to understand engineers because they have such vast descriptions and responsibilities. We're going to dig into what she's done, who she is, how she got here. And of course, we got to talk finances. But can I also mention something else dynamic about her? She's a coach for a fellowship program at Harvard. She's graduated from Cornell. Of course, she's a Bearcat. Yeah, let's just pay attention to what's going on today because this woman is a brilliant mind. I love to have you all learn from her. So let's get straight to it. Before we even get to all those extra fun details, the first question I'm required to ask anybody who does an interview with me is, do you love your job?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's just a little house cleaning because if you don't love your job, as I always say, we can't have you on here because I ain't trying to be selling people on taking jobs that the actual person hates himself. The chef don't eat their cooking. You can't serve it. All right. So the next question is also a question where if it doesn't have to be a serious answer. What is the first job, profession, career you ever remember wanting to have? It does not have to be serious if it wasn't serious. What is that first thought?
I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Oh, okay. Where did that come from?
My love for animals. I had multiple pets growing up, and I still have pets today. So I have my cat and my ball python, which I've had my ball python since 9th grade. So I think it just stemmed from wanting to take care of things, and I loved animals. So veterinarian.
Wait. You've had the same ball python since grade school?
You've never seen my ball python?
I didn't know how old it was. I thought that was a new thing at the time. Wait.
No. I had it since 9th grade. And I still have him. His name's Gizmo.
How long do they live? Like, that's a long time.
Long time. They live in their 40s. They live long.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And if you remember, I don't do snakes, y'all. Let's be clear. I've jumped off a boat in Cancun recently because I was afraid of it. I do things that make me get over my fears, but things that I feel are justified fears, hey, they fine. A snake is a justified fear, and I'm not getting over that one. So I'm a violent, fearful person, so don't try to play this game with me. And I give people the heads up that I am a violent, fearful person to let them know there's consequences for playing around like that. Anyway.
I love my snake, so I will not even put him in that type of situation.
But veterinarian, that is a really cool job. And that's actually a job that you really hear a lot of youth talking about. I haven't as an adult, but I remember as a kid having a lot of friends like, yeah, I want to be a veterinarian. And that really is a cool job. Why'd you switch up?
I feel like my mom definitely put me in certain situations to see my dad's job. My dad was an engineer, and then her job, she's a speech pathologist. She worked with lots of kids when I was growing up, and I got to see kids with disabilities. And so I think the exposure that I got and her I would say aggressive push in the, hey, you like science and math, probably swayed my decision.
Okay, I love talking about the quote, exposure leads to expansion. So you just threw that ball up there for me to alley-oop that in. I have to ask, was this something that you felt was forced, or were you truly connected to this thing? Because sometimes you can get that exposure and feel a little bit of pressure to go ahead and move in there. And then over the time that you're in there, you'll fall in love with it. Did you genuinely fall in love with it after the exposure, or did you grow to love it as an adult?
I think I did fall in love with it. I mean, my mom did not even know what a biomedical engineer was. So me choosing that was on my own. Did she steer it and kind of knew that she wanted me to have a job that she felt would give me security, and that could lead to lots of different things. Yes. But yeah, I think I fell in love with problem solving, and then I started to shape what that looked like, because I think she would have been fine if I said that I wanted to be, any type of engineer or any kind of doctor or business person, like something that she felt would lead into her daughter being secure. But yeah, I think I had the chance to kind of shape that and fall in love with it, I would say, because there's a lot of things along the way that I did not like that helped to shape where I ended up.
Touche, touche. And I'm gonna want to dig into that. Not what you didn't like about the companies or businesses, but what you didn't like that shaped where you became. Because when you learn about what you're interested in, what you don't like, you'll actually able to move in the direction you really want to be working in. Want to stay here briefly. Mom, dad, what did they do? Because frankly, this is really impressive to have parents that can give you the exposure for a position that you are in that's just so dynamic. So what did they do exactly?
As far as their jobs, or
Yes.
what did they do? Okay, so my mom is a speech pathologist, so she worked throughout her career. She worked different places. She worked in the jail system, she worked with elderly, and then most recently, and I would say the longest part of her career, was within the school system, so working with kids. And so she's the one that got me exposed to like Special Olympics and being able to see different people interact with like medical devices. And so that was really good exposure for me. And I would say that I naturally kind of had an affinity to that. I growing up did gymnastics. And so one of my teammates was hearing impaired, and she had hearing, what are they called? She had hearing aids, exactly. And so in order to like follow the music, like I was able to put two and two together. It's like I saw what my mom was doing, and then I had a teammate that was benefiting, and so that kind of grew my love, because I loved my teammate, and it was really cool to see her be successful by using a medical device. My dad, he's a mechanical engineer. Throughout his career, he worked on several different things. So from being like in the plant to working with suppliers, he did a lot of travel, so working internationally. So seeing that he got to travel the world, which I think, yeah, it was naturally something I wanted to do too, is to travel and see different places, which is something I do for fun nowadays. I think that exposure to his lens, and the fact that he was working on so many things, from products that we had at our home, like lotion, to food. I mean, I remember when he was working on the powder that went into like macaroni type foods, to working on toothpaste, just all different products. So seeing that, wow, okay, this thought process is valuable across the board. So yeah, that's what my parents did.
Okay. Okay. Well, you mentioned the devices, and before we even get to the conversation of education, which I really want to get to first, but we're already here, so let's stay here for a quick second. I know personally, because I remember helping you when you were actually working with a lot of kids that had diabetes, and you invented that item, the Pinguini.
Yes, Pinguini.
Okay. Can you speak about your passion and the conversation of creating devices that are going to benefit others? Because you did invent something that was beneficial and was helpful, and I would love to shine some light on that as well. I know that's a past life, but sometimes those lives are still really impressive to others that you've touched. So want to definitely call that out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago, but it was a pivotal moment for me. I learned a ton from it. And so, yeah, Penguini is a pediatric device that slides on top of a lancing device, and a lancing device is used to prick the finger. So, like, whenever people have diabetes, they typically need a blood sample. And so, to get that blood sample, they use a lancing device. So, this device, Penguini, reduced the pain during that prick. Um, the reason that I was able to even come across this was because of my education. So not to get to that, but like I would say at UC that we have an awesome program. We work with designers. So engineering and design comes together and really try to understand, what are people experiencing? What's the user experiencing? What are the pain points within the current medical landscape? And we ended up zooming in on diabetes and understanding, wow, like this prick is actually an annoying thing. It can be scary for people. It could be the reason why they don't constantly monitor their glucose. And so that's where we ended up zooming in on that. And we noticed that parents were really the caretakers, and they had to manage this. And so from there, we just started just like talking to people. So like you said, we went to diabetic camps and had them try out the device and really tried to get input. Ended up learning a lot. So it wasn't just this beautiful story, I would say. We learned that really the users that we were kind of focusing in on, that we were most interested in, weren't at exactly the right entry point, because by the time they were 8 years old, they had diabetes since they were 4, and they were kind of like getting used to it. So really it was those people that had got newly diagnosed that would really benefit. But I would say the reason we even came across and started characterizing this problem was because of how UC had set up this opportunity to exchange with designers and engineers like in a cross collaborative team.
Okay. And for the record, it's called Penguini because it had an actual penguin.
Yes. It looks like a penguin.
Yeah, the device was inside of a little toy looking penguin. So just for clarity, if you're like, where's the penguin in Penguini coming from? That's that other part. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into the education. You went to school, you got your bachelor's and a minor. So go ahead and talk about getting your bachelor's. Obviously, you were guided into the engineering realm because of your father. You chose biomed, it sounds like, because of your peers from gymnastics with their hearing aids, and really triggered the passions for you to figure out how to assist people like your friend and other people in the future. So yeah, let's hear about what college was like. What were the actual pivotal classes you may have taken, and what exactly is this biomedical engineering degree about, as well as your minor in math and materials?
Okay, yeah. So I applied to a ton of schools. I applied to every school I could think of, I would say, as far as colleges. And as I was narrowing it down, I was down to like 3 schools: Case Western, University of Cincinnati, and UPenn. I went to visit each of them, and somehow the day was just like magical when I went to visit UC. I mean, I feel like it was just the most beautiful day on campus. It didn't look like it was under construction. Everything just beautiful. So I was in it. I am definitely a feeling person, even though I went the engineering route, pretty logical. Everything just came together that day for me. So that's honestly how I ended up choosing.
Listen, I feel you. Look, I was recruited for football and track back when I was coming to UC, and I swear she is 100% accurate. When I came on my visit for UC, it was the most perfect weather. There was no construction. We came in the same year, by the way. But our visits clearly probably weren't the same.
Yes, that's probably what.
It was the most perfect thing. They took you to some theater that was on campus. You're like, you don't have a movie theater?
Yes.
I've probably seen 2 movies my entire college career there. But it was still the most coolest thing. I went to Eastern Michigan. I visited Gannon. I visited so many different schools, but it was pouring down, snowing in Eastern Michigan. You couldn't even see the football field. I was like, I'm from Cleveland. I don't want to live like this still. They got beautiful weather down in Cincinnati. I'm taken by that, smitten, and I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm going to UC. As a D1 school, and it's beautiful. It just completely, yeah. And we were considered one of the most beautiful campuses. So I fully understand. It's funny. Your story is exactly how my visit was, and why I ended up coming to UC outside of all the other special things with sports.
Yeah. So yes, we're on the same page, and I wouldn't regret it. I don't regret it at all. Like, I love UC. I would do it over again. One of the awesome things about the engineering program at UC is they had a focus on ethnic engineers. So coming into UC, I was a part of E3, Emerging Ethnic Engineers. The name has slightly changed now, but it's basically like a summer bridge program. That program initially just changed my life, I would say, because coming from high school, I'm not from Ohio, so I went to high school in New Jersey. Coming out of high school, I was all A student. I was very focused on me. I was like, I'm a good student. I'm going to be in here. I'm going to do a good job. Um, Doing this summer bridge program rocked my world. I got exposure to the people in my surrounding greater Cincinnati area. I learned about community. They immediately just kind of changed my paradigm of how I needed to approach engineering, and the fact that it needed to be a team sport, and the fact that we needed to come out of this together. And by we, it was that whole cohort. And so that is something that I mentioned because that has changed me even beyond. So I think that if I didn't go to UC and get that foundation, I would be a whole different engineer, a whole different professional. So that was my initial. So going through the E3 program, you're taking chemistry, you're taking calculus, you get it in the English credit, physics. I think that's all of them. So your main courses, and you're getting exposure to them before you even get into college. And then from there, I would say, since I got that exposure, that did kind of help me hit the ground running. I had study partners that I was able to, work with. And engineering truly was a team sport for me. To this day, the people that I went through the E3 cohort, I'm like friends with them, some of my best friends.
You keep saying E3. I want to make sure it's clear what E3 exactly is. What does E3 mean, and what is
Emerging Ethnic Engineers. This was the summer program that I went to, that I'm saying basically changed my perspective from being an individual, hey, all I care about is I got the grade, to really understanding that I needed to have a collaborative viewpoint and take on engineering as a group. And I don't know if they do that everywhere, but that was something that that this summer bridge program provided me with.
We did come into college, Nate. I know going into McMicken, at least, they did partner you up in groups and try to create little cohorts to, I guess, establish a relationship which might keep somebody in school. I think I do remember that. I mean, it didn't last longer than a week.
It didn't work.
No, I mean, I stayed, but that relationship did not. I don't even remember a single person from it, if I'm honest with you. I just remember faces that are blurred out, honestly.
Well, I think for this program, the reason that it did work is when we had like the test during the summer. I remember passing the test and not everybody passed. And they said, well, since other people failed, if you guys don't get all of your grades up, you're not going to get credit. So I remember that moment. I was like, wait a second, like, I did well, like they didn't do well. And then I realized, oh shoot, like I gotta help them. Like I gotta actually, I can't think that so-and-so is just dumb. Like I need to figure out, what do they need? If I have the tools, they should have the tools too. So we were kind of forced to kind of elevate one another. And that was huge for me. And I think that's why I'm mentioning it, is because that changed my whole perspective. Whereas, if you're just put in a cohort and nothing depends on it, maybe not as much. But for me, I was like, wait, that's going to impact my grade? No way.
So learning how to work with people to allow the overall goal to be successful definitely was great, because, I mean, going into what your profession is, an engineer is most likely working in conjunction with others to complete an entire product that's going to be probably pivotal in some particular aspect.
Yep.
So I definitely see the great value in that. Okay, well, we kind of have an idea of your engineering, but what is this minor? Like, can you explain what math and material means as a minor?
So mathematics, basically I took almost every math that UC has to offer, but the mathematics minor was more because I had already taken most of the maths and I was like, oh, like I like math, let me go ahead. So I would say that one was just more so, okay, it's a low-hanging fruit. For the materials minor, after my experience on co-op, so I had a co-op where I was working on big imaging modalities. So when you think about like X-ray, CT, MRI, I was working in research and development as an engineer. And this experience is what made me more interested in materials. I was like, wow, there's all these different materials. Depending on the material, you get, different imaging characteristics. So that's where I added that one from my experience. And I actually worked at that same company that did the imaging modalities for about 1.5 years. So I kept returning for 6-month co-ops. And so that's where I added the minor. So the minor was directly related to something I had learned about that I thought was interesting.
Can you speak to something that I was extremely jealous of my peers when I was in college and I had no time and I also didn't have the right major to even benefit from it? Can you speak on what were you getting paid as a co-op in college? I don't even know, we've never talked this, but usually I've had peers that were actually working inside of like actually building rockets, and you hear this, like, are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, it increased over time.
Of course it did. Of course it
So
did.
I think like 25 an hour, and then it probably got to like close to 30 an hour for the co-ops. Yeah, we used to feel like we were balling.
Y'all were. It wasn't we used to think y'all were. And you all were doing it during the summertime, sometimes during the full quarter, right? And if you did overtime, you were getting even more because you could get paid more than just 25. There was even more money sitting out there. I had teammates, they talked about this all the time. We've never talked about this.
Yeah, so, we haven't.
Yeah, exactly. So I already knew this because I was paying. I'm like, y'all getting paid. How? I want some.
Working hard.
Okay. Well, what were you actually doing? You kind of mentioned a little bit of it as a co-op, and also for people who don't know, articulate a little bit further than what I'm about to say, which is the cool thing about the UC co-op program is oftentimes it can count towards credits that will get you to graduate, and also count as classes and blah, blah, blah. I want you to fill in the blank.
So okay.
Amazing. And I wasn't in it.
Okay, yeah. So you definitely, I feel like, I mean, so yeah, how the engineering curriculum is set up is you're required to get co-op hours. So it is counted towards your coursework. I feel like it might have been like 3 credit hours, but I am kind of removed from school for a bit. But yeah, it's basically within your curriculum, you need to get a certain amount of experiences, and you can decide to mix those up. I happen to try to build on this kind of the same company. I really liked the company, and I wanted to get different experiences. And sometimes people use that strategy because it allows them to get like a greater depth of experience, because you when you do your first experience, you're building, and when you're a sophomore getting your first co-op, they may give you less responsibility, and then as you return again getting good marks, then they give you more. So that my experience, I first started out as an international trade coordinator, so not as much engineering as I would have wanted, but a great experience. And then from there I was in the research and development lab, so actually helping to design aspects of the next X-ray machinery that was coming out. And then from there, even more experience where I got to lead and manage parts for research and development. So each of my experiences kind of built on one another.
Mm-hmm. And I know when you graduate, many people struggle because they graduate, they need experience to go and get a job that would, in theory, give them experience. But when you all graduate from this co-op program, you all are gaining a significant amount of experience, but you're also establishing residence and experience within a specific organization. And I know the one you were part of was an extremely valued, reputable organization here in Cincinnati and across the globe. So can you speak to how that helped you when you transitioned out of school into getting some type of work?
Yeah, and this is where I was saying that some of my experience kind of let me know what I didn't want to do too. So for this, working for a great company, had 3 different experiences, 1.5 years of experience. Actually, I felt like X-ray and CT didn't feel like medical devices. So even though I enjoyed the experience, I thought it grew me as an individual. I actually decided that, man, I don't know if this company and like what they're working on exactly fits my interest. So although I felt like it was a great experience, it helped shape that, I actually want to work on devices that maybe a surgeon holds in their hands, or the patient, is actually being touched by. Because when you have like X-ray, really people are just looking at the image. They're not really interacting with the CT machinery. So that's kind of what it led me to, was my next step, which I had like a midlife crisis in my mind at that time. Now, looking back, it was not that big of a deal, but I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I just spent all this time at that company. I liked it, but I don't know if I really want to do that. And so then I went to grad school. So that was kind of my next step. Grad school, let's learn about something else. Let's see what it's looking like. What are we doing?
Usually what I like to do is talk about money later on, but just to keep people in perspective, because people are always trying to figure out money. By the way, if we're talking 25, 30,000 a year, you're getting paid almost what, 60, 70,000 if you were doing it full time for a year?
You're talking about co-op?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's about that. 60, 70,000, no debt. As a college student, you get to eat whatever you want. You probably have one of the best jobs. I mean, one of the best cars that you potentially want. I'm not speaking to you right now. I'm just letting people know, like, in context, people think that they have to get rich. But sometimes when you hear real numbers, 60, 70,000, obviously you were also doing education. You weren't able to hit that complete number during college. But a person who makes that money is living a great life. Why am I saying this? Because I want to point out something real quick. That job that did not fit your fancy, how much were you getting paid?
I mean, that was probably like the 30 an hour. I mean, remember, it was 6-month stints. So it wasn't like a salary.
No. I'm talking about you said when you graduated, you were doing something, you hit like a midlife crisis right before you went back to get your master's.
Oh, no. So as I graduated from UC, I decided that I wasn't going to join that company. So then I went to grad school.
But that still was the one that was paying.
Yes, that would have, yeah. It probably would have been like, that around the range that you said.
And that's really great to hear, because many people hear those type of salaries or fighting to get to that level and pay scale. And to hear someone say, hey, I didn't know what I was going to do in my life because this just wasn't it. And another person sitting here like, sounds like you got it. Like, relax. You might be overthinking it. But just want to point that out. Okay, so you ended up saying, all right, I don't want to do this. And you took how much time off between your bachelor's and getting your master's?
No time. I jumped right in. So like right as I started noticing that I wasn't sure that's where I wanted to go, I started applying to schools. And so that's when I went to Cornell for my grad school.
Okay. And Cornell is a especially respected organization and university in this country. So I would love for you to just speak to not only why you went to Cornell, as well as the value of you going to Cornell.
Yeah, so it is definitely a great school. That was one of the reasons I wanted to go there, because I'm very entrepreneurial. So from Penguini, and thanks for bringing that up, Penguini was kind of one of those milestones when I realized, wow, like it would be really great to create something, find, needs and be able to meet those needs. So that was my first introduction to that, even that idea of like, you can create something. So going to Cornell was, to me, a chance to build on my knowledge base within entrepreneurship, business. So all the classes that I took outside of engineering were in the business school, because I wanted to bone up and learn and gain that knowledge base. So I saw it as a way to kind of give myself a credential that, hey, like, okay, you're an entrepreneur, like you're going to learn, you're going to try to network and see where that takes you.
Okay. And how was the master's in biomedical engineering connected to being an entrepreneur?
So I also kind of twofold. So all the classes outside of engineering in the business school, and that's where I was seeing like, hey, okay, I can like build my entrepreneurial knowledge. So that's really where I was putting that focus. When it came to engineering, I had just tried out like all those co-ops that I was like, this isn't quite what I want to do. So I didn't want to just leave the biomedical engineering background that I had. I liked it. It was just that didn't seem like quite the fit. So, if you would have asked me, am I doing what I loved and I chose to do that, I don't know if I would have said that. So I was really trying to find that fit. So I still wanted to explore what all does biomedical engineering have to offer. So this time around, there is more of a tissue engineering focus. So if anyone's familiar with tissue engineering or not familiar, it's more of like, it's more, I would say micro. So really understanding, what are the cells involved with like the makeup of different tissue structures, understanding the characteristics, being able to actually grow cells. So I was learning more about something different that I hadn't learned at University of Cincinnati. University of Cincinnati, I was focused on medical devices and more of like big machinery type. And now I was switching over to understand, what is it like, what other realm, which biomedical engineering is a large space. So now I was focusing in on these molecular tissues, which I don't know if you want to hear it or not, but I was not feeling that. I was like, wait a second, this is a little too small. I can't even see it. It's all computer. Like there's like computer things that you could do to like generate the cells and test it out. That was not my forte. So that's where I was learning, but then I had to kind of shift and see, what companies are out there that I liked. And that's when I was able to land a job after grad school in a realm that I actually am excited about.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you just graduated from Cornell. What's your next move? Your professional guidance? What's happening?
So proactively, as I would say, for the thing that I did well when I did not like something is I gained as much as I could from it. Okay. It's real cool in its own right. But now what next? So I would say I proactively looked for something else. Like I was looking to see, what kind of jobs are out there. What is it that I like? Because bringing these things together helped to illuminate more of what I was looking, what it wasn't, and what I wanted to do. So that's when I ended up learning about surgical devices. And I ended up joining a surgical device company by going to NSBE, so National Society of Black Engineers. I would highly recommend that for any engineer to go to their conferences. I feel like I go to their conferences every year. Lately, when it's been virtual, a little less, but before that, I would be at every conference. That was where I've gained all of my job opportunities, actually, I would say. Or I would say all of my main engineering job opportunities, because now I have other opportunities that have come just through word of mouth. But yeah, so that was a great opportunity, going to the career fair, seeing all the different jobs, interviewing on the spot. That's how I got my my next job, or my first official job out of grad school, was going to a NSBE conference and having an idea of what I was interested in, since I had seen what I wasn't interested in. So now I knew, okay, as long as a surgeon or a patient is touching the device, that was more so what I was interested in. And so now I've been really excited about the devices that I've been working on.
Okay. I don't know how much is proprietary, so I'm just curious about if you can speak on what type of devices you're working with. And if you can't, can you speak on what types of devices those things are and the value that they may be bringing to others? Because I know certain organizations, they have secrecy behind it. So I don't want you to be giving away too many secrets, but I would love for people to hear how cool your job is and the value that you're bringing to this world.
Yeah, I will not give any secret sauce, but there are things that I've worked on that are on the market. So and it's kind of interesting to ask, because most of the time people don't know about the products that I and my teammates work on, because usually just the surgeon knows, the patient's not usually aware. So in general, the type of devices are for removal of cancer. So if people go in and they have cancer of the lungs, if they have cancer in the stomach, and then there's also, like, for example, gallbladder removal. I work on devices that help to remove the cancerous tissue or help to get out abnormal tissues. How that works, well, without sharing any of the secret sauce, but sharing what is already on the market. Well, staplers. So they're surgical staplers that literally go in and staple tissue. So imagine how an industrial stapler works. So a very, heavy duty stapler. That's literally what's used to cut out tissue. There's also advanced energy. So there's several technical details to what advanced energy means. But one simple way to think about it is very fast vibration. And that is used to remove and seal tissue. So seal the blood vessels and cut through it and then remove tissue. So if you were interested, you can look at advanced energy surgical devices. So there's obviously going to be different companies that come up without me revealing which company I work for, but you can look up advanced energy devices. You can look up surgical staplers, and there's products on the market that will be similar to things that I work on.
Just out of curiosity, for clarity, because people oftentimes try to figure out where they're going to go next. If you can think of competitors or simply companies that do similar work like your company, if you just so happen to name your company in the middle of these, who cares? Because who knows which one was yours. But can you name several organizations that through your degrees, through your skill sets, and through the things you've done that you could be working for?
Yeah, definitely. So there's Lilly, there is Edward Life Sciences, there's Medtronic, there is Johnson and Johnson. So there's several different companies that are located across the world that you could work for that have medical devices.
Yeah, and what's actually cool, because this is really timely. I didn't compute it. So for everybody who's watching this months down the line, or in the next couple of years, right now we're in 2021. The Olympics is currently taking place right now, and I have been noticing all the Lilly commercials for the Paralympics.
Yes, they're in it.
I didn't even get that till just now. Like, okay, so that's what Lilly is. You know how some of these commercials are just so grandiose that you don't necessarily compute exactly what they're doing. Okay, there we go.
Yes, so GE Healthcare had a commercial too. I didn't mention them, but that's another company that with a biomedical engineering degree you could work for. Yep.
Okay, nice. All right. Well, as it's funny because I want to go back to the staples because I have personal experience with this, and I'm curious to know if they're the same. Because some of your staples, you're thinking about a stapler that's putting papers together, and there's people who get stitches with the actual normal looking stitches, and then there's people that get staples. Are those the same staples that are going inside of the person? And by the way, for anybody who's ever wondered, if you see me with a low haircut, like, oh, Mario really likes getting a part right here. When my hair is low, it looks like I have a part. No, I got cut from here to here before a football game, and it was going to the game. It was a stupid way I cut my head. That's a whole different story. It's not important. And I wanted to play football so bad. I went to the doctor. I was like, you're going to need stitches because I got cut all the way to the white meat. And they were like, yeah, you're going to get stitches. Like, can I play football? I was like, no. What can I play football with? Staples. Never heard of it. They're like, it's not going to hurt. We're going to put a whole lot of, the numbing stuff, and you're not going to feel anything. I felt everything.
That stuff hurt.
And I felt the clamp. And they're like, you can play football with it. Yeah. By the way, for anybody that doesn't realize this, when you play football, a helmet goes right there. And usually you open the helmet and then it squeezes. You know where it squeezes? Right there. I played in that game, by the way. I broke up a pass and my coach refused to let me play. He let me play in one possession because one of my teammates got hurt, and I did break up a play. That's why I was almost D1, baby. But I fractured my spine. But that's no here nor there. I'm so proud of what I did in college. But hey, could have went pro.
Hey. No, that's a good story, and I'm glad that you brought that up because no, those aren't the same type of staples, but yes, the same company makes those. The type of staples for, say, a cancer patient, usually they're gonna be more, well, they could be for open or laparoscopic surgery, but a lot of times it's gonna be like a long shaft, and then the staples are actually on the end. So you have this almost like a gun that you're holding with these staples, and you're sliding it through. So if it's a laparoscopic surgery or minimally invasive, where you have just the little port, which we call a trocar, that you put into the skin, that device is actually going to go in there and then they're manipulating the tissue in order to actually clamp on and staple. So the staple that you're experiencing, that's more for like wound closure. But these are the surgical staplers are used in surgery. So yeah, it's a little different.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, what are some of the things that you love about what you do? I mean, you as we've discussed, and many people don't think about this. I mean, there's basic things that engineers do that are so critical to our day-to-day life. I just got done spending some time this weekend with a friend who I didn't even compute. I didn't even realize that he actually built engines for planes. Well, he actually created and really worked through the process of making planes more efficient, their engines. And there's certain aspects that we don't often even think about. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what are those innovative things that the industry, not your company, the industry is looking for to build towards and continuously trying to utilize and maximize in the future. I don't know if you can share that, but I'm sure there's conferences and things out there that people are talking about stuff. So I just would love to hear if there's any future breaking news.
Yeah. Okay, now we're stepping in the crux of what I can't share. No, I'm just kidding.
That's why I said conferences. You said you attend conferences. What are your peers talking about? Don't even think about anything going on in your company. I'm talking about what are you hearing out there
No,
that
that's fair.
peers have said?
So, okay, some of the stuff that I think is worth mentioning that's great that companies like the company I work for and others do is talking to users. So, like I said, I'm working on surgical devices, and there's so many different people that help to prepare the device from when they open it from off the shelf to putting it in the sterile environment to actually getting to the surgeon's hands for use. So some of the things that I've done very recently is traveling for usability studies. So working with surgeons, working with nurses, trying to understand how they'll interact with our devices. And it goes beyond just what the device is doing. It also incorporates how that person is feeling typically during these type of cases, what's the energy in the room. So I do think that there's a little bit of, there's a strong shift happening in the medical environment where bedside manner is becoming more and more important. People are now taking more I'll say they're taking their health more into control. They're knowledgeable of things. So it's causing there to be a shift beyond just, oh, I have a good product and I use that. It's like, are you using cutting edge, information, for example? So I would say, without sharing exactly where things are going, talking about things that are already on the market, there's robotics. So as far as robotics, and then you think about like all the information that different companies have. So we think about our phones and all the information and health data there. There's things that companies are looking towards to try to use that information more proactively, but also there's that privacy. So, how do we allow people to either share or not share the information, but how can we take care of people with the information we have prior to them even knowing. I would say that's a lot of where the talk is going. How do you do that, but how do you respect HIPAA? That's definitely something that's cutting edge.
Well, let me go ahead and just cut in there and add my own thing that I expect or suspect that isn't your company, maybe, but people know about this device that's out there. There's a device that's really cool where if something's going on in people's stomach, they can swallow a capsule that's essentially a camera, and it'll allow people, the doctor or whatnot, to see what's going on inside all the way down.
Yeah,
that's something that you would have the skills to potentially develop, engineer, and work with the team to build, correct?
Yeah, that would be something that definitely I've seen before. The like pillbot, I think there's a few actually, and they target different things. So if you can imagine like someone needs a colonoscopy, so to understand how that tissue is, that's how they could utilize that. And there's several ways that you could utilize it, but it could tell like, do you have ulcers around the tissue? So is it irritated, or do you have cancer? Like, are there cells that we need to be concerned about? And so yeah, there's many different capabilities that come with that type of technology. And yes, that would be something that someone like myself could work on.
Okay. Is there any technology, not going into details, just being very medical in this moment? You know what? We're not even going to touch it. We're not even going to touch it. We're not even going to touch it because there's a conversation I feel like every man wants to know. Is there some technology coming down the pipeline that won't make us upset when we turn 40? But we don't have to go into details about that. Just yes or no. Is there anything that's coming down the pipeline that you've heard in the industry that might make men a little bit more relaxed, to say a lack of better words?
Oh my goodness. So
And you don't have to go in details
I
because it's just
haven't.
for the children, but this is a health question.
It is a health question. I haven't a clue specifically to that. One thing I will say is my knee-jerk reaction is who's going to pay for it. A lot of the incentives in the medical device industry.
Well, y'all always say men is always being selfish to take care of men. So I would assume the men are out here trying to figure out a way around this one.
It's really difficult to get things paid for in the medical environment. And so I would say, so some of my expertise is in biodesign. So that's what I did at Stanford. Really understanding how the system is structured, what's currently getting paid for. With something like that, honestly, it doesn't cost that much money. So there's not going to be as many people trying to innovate in that space. They would probably be okay with the discomfort, and that's unfortunate.
Because people are figuring out ways to spend more. Listen, I have heard a woman come on, I want to say TV One years ago, and talk about how she discovered a way to cure cancer, but because it did not require invasive procedures, medical tools, medicine, or things like that, they kind of threw her to the side because the FDA was like, nah, or whatever. I don't know how that whole thing goes. But I've heard people talk about if it don't make money, they're not really looking to try to add that to the equation, which is how you can come up with pills that can hide HIV and somehow not cure it yet. Word, you don't have a cure yet, but you can make it go all the way invisible. I don't see that possible. But I'm just saying, if people try to make money, why don't y'all figure out a way to make money off of this? We willing to spend it. I'm willing to spend a couple extra dollars upon that system. All right. Next question though is based off of the technology that is being developed. Are these brain babies from the brilliant minds of you all, or are people actually reaching out and saying, "Hey, there's an issue here, and we need you all to figure out how to fix it," or better yet, this product is not the most efficient and we need you all to make it more efficient?
Okay.
How do new products come about, essentially?
It's a mixture. It takes a lot of money to produce a medical device. There's so many different kind of like milestones that have to happen with medical devices, especially if it's a true medical device. So there's different classes, but so do they come externally to big companies? Yes. Do they come internally to big companies? Yes. When it comes internally to a big company, I would say a lot of the times they're pretty iterative. So very small, incremental, because big companies tend to, in the medical space, not want to take on a huge liability. Externally, those things end up being a lot more groundbreaking. So if someone's able to get seed funding and kind of take something and study it and get it to a certain place and show real evidence, that's when the bigger companies tend to take them on. So you'll see within the medical industry that there's a lot of the behavior of acquiring different companies, so different startups that have established data or have shown evidence that, oh, this is a new breakthrough way. So I would say it goes both ways, but a lot of the times the more groundbreaking things will be more external to a big company, also because of all that liability.
Okay. All right. I was curious about that. Well, we're getting towards the end, but before we get to one of my favorite parts, I want you to iron out, first off, for clarity, everyone that wants to quick facts. Took you 5 years to graduate school. It seems like a lot of engineers, because of the co-oping program, do an extra year of school. It seems like it's not that big of a deal because you're getting paid so much money at times during your co-op that it kind of all pays itself off at some point. You did one more year to get your master's. So you finished your master's in 1 year, which equals 6 years of education and a whole lot of experience at the same time from all the education. You moved into your profession. Was that frankly because you had connections? Was it a complicated road to get a job at your current company, or was it just like, hey, my resume, my education, all of that made it easy for me to come over here?
I think using my resume, my education, storytelling. So being able to tell like from my experiences, what I liked, where I saw myself, where I wanted to go. And then also using the National Society of Black Engineers conference, because that was a chance to just see a whole bunch of companies and interview. Yeah, I think that combination, but I definitely think that my co-ops and then my experience through education was able to work for me.
Was there any job opportunities, job fairs at the NSBE conference?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
It's like basically a huge job conference. There's nothing but companies, booths. You get to interview there. Yes.
Okay. And for everybody who has heard her break down what NSBE stands for, I'm also say the letters NSBE. I want to stress that because many times people hear these organizations just write it off. I assure you, as an engineer, I'm not an engineer, and I know that every single Black engineer I've talked to, they're all a part of this organization. They all big up this organization, and
Yeah.
it is truly the ground for you to build relationships, build your education, and your connections. So if you're looking at it, getting involved in engineering, I really want to tell you all, take her very seriously in her recommendation for NSBE. Look into it, learn something about it. And usually universities has the programs, and after school, there's organizations for you to get involved in. Are they the same?
Yeah, they kind of feed into each other. It's a whole
Okay.
community. And even like when people are in high school, they can attend the conference too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Well, your day-to-day life, we talked about the brilliant activities that you actually have assisted with, but in general, what is this actually like? Are you really just going into some room like in a movie with your white coat and just working away, or what does it look like? Because you did mention the fact that you're traveling. So what is your exact title, and what exactly do you actually do, say, in a work week?
Yeah, so my current title is Senior Human Factors Engineer. And what is a human factors engineer? So human factors is essentially engineering mixed with psychology. So what's the interaction with people, devices, the environment, the other people in the room, and how do you incorporate those aspects into the design? So how do I mitigate risk based on what people actually do when they're in a simulated environment with our devices? So my day to day, it does depend, but lately it's been a lot of travel. So with all of the with COVID and the quarantining, right now we're just kind of we've gotten the okay to go out, and right now it's even changing as we speak, but we were in the going out and doing studies. So there's different types of usability studies. There's something called a formative study, and there's something called a summative. Formative is kind of an iterative process where you're designing workflows that are typical for how the device would be used, and you go to you create an environment that looks similar to what the surgeon would be in or what the nurses would be in, and you work through those workflows. And then summative is the final work through, so you can learn from all the formatives, and then you do the summative, and that's what you submit to the FDA. And so lately I've been traveling, just in the past like maybe 6 weeks. I think I've been traveling 3 weeks out of the 6 weeks. So went to Philly, Chicago, New York, and we're recruiting surgeons and nurses. And so, for example, one of them is a surgical stapling device. And so from there, we have them do different procedures to understand how do they engage with it. So do they know how to fire it? Do they know how to clamp on the tissue? Do they know how to release the tissue? Do they know what to do if they get in a scenario where it's stuck on tissue? Who would they call? Do they know how to engage with the instructions for use that we've provided them with? Do they know how to access those instructions for use if they're not in a paper form? Do they know how to get to them online? Who would they ask? So working through all these things. So these are like sessions of an hour to an hour and a half with each of these user groups. So a lot of my life right now has been traveling to do these studies. And then we analyze the data from those studies. So if, did we have lots of human error that occurred? Okay, why is that? We're not going to blame it on the user. We're going to try to understand what was the rationale for why those things happen. And then how do we change the design to make an improvement so that that doesn't happen? So that when I get to my summative study, I don't have the same use errors happening. So that's my current life. Sometimes it's a lot more paperwork than others, but right now I would say this is the fun part, is really getting out and understanding how people interact with the devices.
You getting to eat that good food, travel, all good.
That is true.
Nice. So for clarity, for anybody who is listening to her travel and isn't currently an adult who's gotten to travel, I want you to understand that I haven't even talked to her about this, so I already know her company is paying for her flights. How many days are you in Philly or a city like that?
I mean, so I'm the lead. So if I don't feel like traveling as much, I will go part-time, but usually it's like the whole week that we're traveling. So probably 5 days. And yes, the company is paying for your travel, your Ubers, your food. You get that actually, I guess that is kind of cool to know, is like you get like a certain amount of money for each of your meals. Did you want to know? I don't know if that's interesting or not.
I mean, you don't have to go too deep into that. I just wanted to point out that you get to experience these cities at the same time. It's like you're living there and you're doing a job. Imagine being at home. You have certain hours that you'll be working normal at home, and then you get to go out and maybe experience a little bit. So that's a cool little aspect of those jobs that allow you to travel, because you get to be the professional that you would be in your hometown, but in a different hometown to get to experience, or in a different town to get to experience that place. And it's on their dime. By the way, if you all were wondering, she's still getting her own salary on top of them covering everything involved in the travel, because the whole travel is her job.
Yeah, and just to add, I mean, I love hotels, and so we also get the points from the hotels that we stay at. So yeah, as we travel, you get to get your points, so you could stay at the same hotel chain if you like that. So yeah, and you still get your salary. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, people need to hear this type of things. All right, I have two more questions before we get to rapid questions, which is, of course, I have to ask, because you talk about so many things related to the body, the physical health, and working with doctors. It sounds like when you were in school, you did some type of classes connected to anatomy and really learning what's going on inside of the human body in order to do your job, opposed to just assuming what they're doing. That was the part of biomedical that you were doing as well, where it wasn't just the technology, it was also the human body.
Yeah, biology, all the anatomies that they offer at UC. So anatomies 1 through 4, whatever they have, and then all the anatomy labs. And then you're also learning chemistry. And I wasn't pre-med, but a lot of my colleagues. So I would say if you're not sure if you want to be a doctor, it's a good major too. And so anyways, you'll do inorganic chemistry, but I didn't do that one. But yeah, all the bio courses that they offer, you basically take. Yep.
Okay. What qualifies a person to have your job?
My current job right now, it's weird because I did not formally study human factors engineering, so I think hustle is a part of it. So in order to really tell my story and explain that I should have a high level job without a degree in human factors, which that is now a degree, it took some hustle to just really kind of lay out what my passions are, what I'm interested in, and why I could do the job. And that hustle also included doing some groundwork on my own. So understanding what the standards are, what the guidelines are for medical devices. So yeah, there is a little bit, I did take a little bit of a turn because my original job that I first came out of school, quality engineering, that one, I would just say biomedical engineering, that's enough. This one, so I first came in, I was an assistant quality engineer. And then before I quit, I think I was a primary quality engineer. And now I'm a senior human factors engineer. So I kind of took a little bit of a jump up, but like in a whole different area. But I guess my advice to people is that if you think that, you know, you're a good fit for something and you have the interest level, learn about it and tell that story. And so that's what I did moving into this role.
But it's also the fact that you gained so much experience that you were qualified as well. Like your experiences and things you did connected directly and plugged in well to your profession. And there were, of course, going to be things that you had to learn, but every job, even the ones that you're qualified for, you're going to have to learn something going into. But your actual experience, those relationships, the awareness of exactly what it is, you just, as you mentioned, telling your story, you just have to know how to articulate how those things crossed over, correct?
Wholeheartedly agree. So quality engineering, a lot of that is risk management. And when I talked about human factors, it's like I'm looking at what is the person doing? How do I eliminate that risk? So telling that story of all that experience in quality engineering, and then saying how that relates itself to human factors, and to be able to lead in human factors was a clear storyline. It was just making that for people. So yes, I totally agree.
You said quality engineering. What exactly is it?
It's a lot of things, but a lot of risk mitigation. So it could be statistical analysis of how your verification testing is going. So if you are, we'll go back to the stapler. If you're firing a stapler and you needed to make sure that there's no leakage, so you'll do a leakage test where you might push saline into the area that you cut to make sure that no saline leaks through, because that would represent blood leaking or bleeding out. So you would be doing the analysis for that. So several different tests. Okay, did it leak? Did it not leak? How much did it leak? And analyzing that data. So that's one simple example of one of the things. And then it's documentation. So the FDA is really looking closely at everything that's happening in the medical device world. So there has to be ways to document how you're managing the systems. And so managing, okay, here are all the different parts of the system. Here's what can go wrong with it. Okay, here's how we've mitigated that. That's a document called an application failure modes and effects analysis. So I manage the AFMEA for my teams. So there's several different aspects of quality, but that's like two easy ways to show is like through testing and analyzing that testing, and then also documenting and showing that we have a quality record and a risk mitigation system.
What was the entry level? Yeah, we're in the money part. What was the entry level salary for your position?
So when I first started quality engineering, the entry level salary, 70,000. And then of course that changed over time. And then I quit. And then now in my new role, is that your next question?
Yeah. And if it's your current role, you can say the range, unless it's definitely gone up, and you can talk about the entry level and whatnot. But
okay, so I've never done the entry level at this role, and so I'll say the range is around 110 to 140.
For your current position, or
for my current position. So depending on what that year is looking like in that multiplier, it looks different. But yeah, that's the range.
Okay. Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and get to rapid questions. I love this part, and it's exactly as it sounds. And I try to start off easy. So when it comes to the rapid questions, I want you to be as concise as possible. I'm sure everyone has their moment where they need to explain something. So just remember to figure out how to shorten that answer when you get to that. All right.
Okay.
So we keep it easy on the first question, which is favorite sport.
Gymnastics.
Of course. Favorite book.
Oh my goodness. What would be my favorite book? Dang, this is really slow for me. I don't think I have one.
Do you have a favorite author?
No.
Do you have a book that you remember reading?
I'm thinking of like the Happiness book by Tony Hsieh, but that one's awkward because of all the stuff that happened with him.
Okay, I don't know who that is, so it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Favorite hobby?
Bodybuilding.
Okay. And you've done bodybuilding competitions too?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. If you could speak with anybody, dead or alive, not related to you, who would that person be?
Probably Simone Biles, because she just everything that's going on with her right now, I want to know.
Oh, you got a question coming. I had already wrote it down to remember connected to her in gymnastics, but I'll save it towards the end. Okay. That's a really good one. I like that one. I like that one. Really timely. Okay, this is one that I will admit appears to be one of the hardest questions that I ask for some reason. Think about your music. Think about your favorite songs. I'm trying to softball this question in there so you can finally get an answer.
Okay.
What song could in theory be a theme song for you?
I Love My Life by DeMarco.
Okay, perfect. I was able to get an easy answer that time. Maybe I'm gonna have to do it from now on. Like, yeah, I still don't think I've got the answer, and I've done that. I'm sure I've done it before. All right, you love your current job. All right, so we're not talking about companies. What is a dream position for you?
Probably being not necessarily a CEO, but like I guess a CEO co-collaborator with other people that I've worked with throughout my life that I really enjoyed working with. So maybe it's almost like consulting, honestly, but being able to like own the project and then move on to something else, but being able to collaborate with people that I've really enjoyed working with throughout my career.
Okay. It's taking everything in me not to prime you for this question because I'm really excited and I hope I get a good answer out of you for this. And that's really laying the thick on you for this
Oh
one.
gosh.
But nonetheless, what is the change that you want to see in this world?
I'm going to go back to my experience going into UC and that pivotal moment of just caring about others. I think the thing that I want to see is community. And what I mean by that is just trying to take the chance to understand one another, especially people that are different from you. Because I feel like right now the world's like even more polarizing than ever, especially with social media, and just the opportunity just to kind of go in on one another just so quickly. So I think what I'd want for the world is just community. Like, hey, okay, you have a difference in opinion on this. Let me at least understand, because understanding someone else's opinion doesn't lessen yours. But I think people really think that if they even understand someone else, it lessens their opinion.
Okay.
Which it does not.
And now I am priming.
Okay.
Because I've never asked this question. But
okay.
And I'll answer it first, which I've never done in rapid questions.
Okay.
Based off of what you do, I was really curious and excited to hear that answer. So that's why I'm about to create this question, and it will be moving forward from this interview into future interviews. What's the change? And like I said, I'll answer the question first. What's the change that you're looking to see in the world? Better yet, what is the change that you're working to create in the world? So perfect example for me, the change that I constantly, no matter my profession, no matter where I've been as an adult, the change I've constantly worked to see is making lives better. Like that's really important to me. I'm not a doctor, but I know there's aspects of life that if people have more information, they could have a great level of improvement, whether it's financial, whether it's professional, whether it's social. Those are the aspects that I try to connect with. I'm also not a biomedical engineer that's creating devices that's impacting lives over the long haul and in the future. So I'm just curious to know, what is the change that you're working actively to see in the world? Yeah, that was a little bit
I
heavy. I
don't,
didn't realize it.
yeah, I'm like, mine's probably not gonna still end up in the device realm because I think it's probably gonna be super simple because everywhere I go, I am usually different from the people around me. So whether it's that I'm a woman or if it's that I'm a Black woman, um, so I think constantly any realm that I go into, it's just trying to open doors and let people in. I would say I'm always trying to find avenues to allow people to see more people like myself or allow people like myself that are younger than me to see what they can do. So just being able to share that like this is really cool to just kind of share, oh, here's my background, hey, I have like 4 jobs, you can have 4 jobs too if you want to, like that, like for me is beneficial. So I think mentoring others, that's kind of like as I get to different places, that's really been the focus, like from when I did the fellowship to when I started my first job. I immediately became a recruiter because I realized that, wait, I'm the only person that looks like me. What, why is that? What can we do next? So I think that even though I'm in the realm of medical device, a lot of it is really simple. It's just letting people have exposure. Because a lot of the people that I end up working with, for example, a lot of the white males that I work with, because that's majority, they just don't have exposure to people like me. So them meeting me and then them realizing that, oh wait, okay, she's talking about National Society of Black Engineers, or oh, okay, like I should be learning more about these areas that before we thought weren't worth the time. Oh, but she thinks it's interesting, so like let me listen. So I think just providing my perspective. I mean, also my parents aren't from the United States, so it's like that's also another lens. So I think I'm thinking of it as also being West Indian, my parent, a child of immigrants. Like there's several dimensions that I'm thinking of, I think, naturally. So yeah, that wasn't quick.
This had nothing to do with nothing, but I'm just gonna put it in there temporarily because this is the time period we're in. Who you root for in the Olympics? Who you pulling for? Because name the country that you actually have as nationality.
It depends. Track is Jamaica. I'm sorry.
Because your family's from the islands.
Yeah, my dad's Jamaican, my mom's Trinidadian and Crucian. So yeah, I mean, I was born in the United States. I'm still rooting for the United States too.
In other aspects, yeah, at times. I got you. Okay. Well, last question related to the rapid questions closing out that was a real question, which is, what's your why? You said a whole lot. Just, I guess, what's your why?
My why is my faith. My belief in God. I would say that's my first why, and then community is my second why. I feel like that's been the area that I have the most passion around. I think it's because God put it there. And so yeah, that my why is community. So yeah.
Okay, well, that's rapid questions. We're done with rapid questions, but since you mentioned it, let's go ahead and touch on it. Simone Biles, you were a former gymnast.
Yes.
What's this twisty story? Like, apparently this is a technical term that people actually have heard about, know about. What's the deal with the twisties?
I mean, you lose your orientation. It's definitely like it's discombobulating. So.
It just happens out of nowhere. Like you can just go to the Olympics after busting people's tail for the last couple months in the last couple years and show up at the Olympics, and then boom, I got the twisties like a migraine, and now I'm out of the game. Like, I'm not trying to sound insensitive. I'm genuinely trying to understand because I'm certain the entire planet that doesn't watch gymnastics outside of the Olympics every 4 years is thinking the same thing. Like, what's the deal here?
I mean, okay, so it's Simone Biles. Like, in my opinion, she can do whatever she wants. She probably could still, she could probably still compete. Like she probably could be fine. However, the skill level that she comes in at, like the difficulty level, and I think that is a part of her game. That's a part of like who she is. I think what she wants to bring and how I mean, she's above everybody else basically. I mean, it gets dangerous, and so she doesn't want to lower her difficulty level and bring something bring something that maybe she doesn't feel is her, then that's it.
And it's kind of similar to, well, this would be a good analogy to Michael Jordan in his prime being able to jump out of the gym, not knowing how to land properly. Would that be the equivalent? He's all the way in there jumping from the free throw line, but his ankles have no idea how to go down to the ground. They don't know if they should stay straight, whether they should turn sideways. They're just trying to figure out what to do in midair, and then they can get blown up.
So are you gonna tell him to just do little hops? No, you're not gonna be like, do little hops. You be like, all right, you could just come back when you want to come back and do your thing.
Okay. Well, it sounds like she might be coming back for the last event.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that not matter for the Twisties?
I mean, I'm excited for it.
Have you met anybody with the Twisties?
I mean, I feel like so I'll say I haven't had anyone on my gymnastics team say that they're not going to compete because they had the Twisties, but there's a lot of other things that I've heard, like there's blocks as far as just going backwards. Some people get mental blocks, so there's a lot of different types of mental blocks. But I could also say that there's plenty of people that compete with all these things mentally happening and then they hurt themselves. So
yeah. I mean, I never had the Twisties, but I also never learned how to do a proper backflip. And I was in Cancun and I jumped off the boat for the first time. I addressed one of my fears. I jumped off a boat into the ocean, which I learned how to swim my senior year of college. So I'm not the most confident in my swimming abilities, but I did it because I hate being afraid of stuff. And it was a huge flop the first time. I just jumped in. But when I tried to do backflips, everybody in context is judging this woman about her ability, and think about what she's doing in midair. Can you do it? I can think about it easily because I tried to do, somebody was like, do a backflip off. Now I've always known how to do a front flip, but a backflip, well, I never know how to land a front flip. I just know how to twist my body and flip. But I tried to do a backflip, and let's just say it went, I did the back part, the bending, and it just came down, bow, flat on the ocean water. I guess it was whatever ocean is down there in Cancun, all salt, all eyes. I couldn't see. Somebody luckily was down there to save me. So I'm just saying, if you can't do none of that, if you can't even come close to doing a tenth of what she's doing, maybe you should just respect whatever
I agree.
Doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
What is something you would tell the younger version of you right now that would allow her to be successful faster?
Oh, faster. Okay. I would probably let her lean more into who she is. I think that I was, leaning into engineering and like what I thought that was supposed to look like. And now as I've grown, I've learned that I'm so much more creative than I even allowed myself to be, which has opened up lots of avenues. So I think I would tell my younger self to lean into what I was passionate about, what I was good at, and then where the opportunities are, rather than just trying to like fit this mold of what I think, an engineer was supposed to do. Because I do think that took up time. That definitely took up time as a quality engineer, which I liked it at first. And then after a while, I was tired of it. So then that's what I was looking for, a transition. But if I were to lean more into, hey, what are you passionate about? What are you good at from all these experiences? And where are the opportunities, and finding those? I think that would have helped me.
Is there anything that we haven't spoken of today that you want to share with our audience?
One thing that we didn't touch on, just because we're talking about jobs, I have several jobs, and so we talked about the quality engineering, which is in the past, and then I currently work as a senior human factors engineer. One of the things that I would also add is I have some other gigs, and the reason I'd want to share that, and I intentionally share with people, is so that they know that you can have several jobs. Like, you don't just have to work for one big company. So Harvard, can I say Harvard or no? Okay,
university. We said UC this whole time.
Okay. I was just like, I said
Harvard first. Actually, I said it
actually. Okay. So I have a couple part-time jobs. So one of them is at Harvard, and I work as a coach. I'm an adjunct professor. And so that's also a part-time job. And then I do some gigs. So I do some gigs with a university, and then I also uh, on and off work for the government. And you can do these things if you manage your time. And so when it comes to part-time work, a lot of my part-time work is only like maybe 2 hours a week. So just managing my time, and usually I would say I'm providing a skill set that they find valuable enough that just that timing and me providing my experience from the past benefits the team. And so that's something that I didn't know. I was like, wait, like, how do you have, multiple jobs? And like, is that even possible? But especially with things being remote, there are ways to have, kind of follow several passions. So like I said, community is important to me. So with the teaching job, that really helps me build community. I'm getting to provide exposure to young people to like what I do. So I teach medical product design. That's one of the courses, and it's on and off, so it just depends. But it also depends on how much time I have. But I just wanted to also say that to your listeners that you can have different jobs and you can manage your time.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. I love it. And so I have to go ahead and give what I took away, because you gave me a lot today. And I want to stress to my audience that Nesby organization that she brought up, I really, really want to stress. Look into it. It is such a dynamic organization. The programs, the conferences, there's a great amount of value that you're going to be able to get from that. So definitely look into that today. The other thing I want to stress is the fact that you talk about knowing your story and telling your story. You got to be able to be an advocate for yourself, but also know what you've done. Be able to connect yourself to the things that you've done and things that you want to do based off of the story that you have built from your experiences. And you've done a phenomenal job. As you've mentioned, you have a profession, a current job that you didn't necessarily get the education from, because it sounds like the degree didn't exist prior to where you are now. And based off of everything you've done, you're qualified for it. So be an advocate, learn your story. And a part of learning your story is really, really gather who you are. One of the greatest things that I learned in grad school was how I learned. When you learn how you learn, you're able to consume information much faster, because now you can make sure it's focused based around you, opposed to how they want to teach you. And you learning about who you are and investing time and energy around the things that excite you, build you up, will allow you to invest your time wisely and be able to benefit and get paid literally and figuratively in the future by doing something that you truly love, because you learned what you did not enjoy. And I appreciate that message. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you. Thanks, Racquel. And like that, y'all, you know how it goes. 2 of these. Thanks, Racquel.
Yay. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thanks for thinking.